My name is Jamin Weiss, and today I'm going to be teaching you about ancient Greece history and warfare. This lesson is designed for 4th through 6th graders, and in this lesson, students will learn the history of ancient Greece, in specifically the Peloponnesian and Persian Wars. Some of the skills you will be acquiring is an understanding of what a primary source is and how it can be used to broaden your understanding of a topic. Also, an understanding of ancient Greek values as well as the as learning why history must be studied and how it can be applied today. So some general values of Greek warfare is they really emphasize unity and cohesion, and they fought for the glory of their people. The Greeks were very patriotic people. They had immense pride in their country, their culture, and their specific city-states, and that's why they were willing to sacrifice themselves for their people. So a new age of Greek warfare developed when iron was invented and it became the standard for armor as opposed to bronze. Iron was a lot cheaper than bronze, and so that allowed armies to become not just restricted to the upper class, resulting in larger armies made up of peasants, artisans, traders, as opposed to only the upper class. So hoplite soldiers were the standard infantry soldier in ancient Greece. They were equipped with an iron helmet, armor, a 3-foot shield, and an 8-foot spear. The majority of these soldiers were made up of the lower class, and they used a tight formation known as the phalanx. So as you can see in this video, the phalanx is a shield wall that is designed to be nearly unpenetrable. Hoplite soldiers used their spears to kill the enemy, and they did not use archery in the phalanx because archery is believed to be the coward's method of fighting. And upon death or injury, someone behind him would step up and take his place. The phalanx developed because the way that the shields were designed, they only cover half of your body and half of someone standing next to you. So each soldier is covered by half of their shield and half of the person next to them's shield. So, what is a primary source? A primary source is any record of history that was produced at the time of the event that it talks about. Some people think that a primary source is an unbiased account of something, and this is not true. Herodotus and Thucydides were some of the most famous Greek historians who wrote on Greek warfare, and here are some accounts of the phalanxes. So Herodotus said that the soldiers stood all drawn up together in one close body. Thucydides said the more closely the shields were locked, the better the protection. And Herodotus also wrote that the Greek tactics seemed ridiculous to him, Xerxes. We're going to talk more about Xerxes a little bit later. So the Persian Wars. The Greco-Persian Wars was a series of wars between Greece and Persia. At the time, Persia was the largest empire in the world, and they invaded Greece. The Greeks then came together in unity to defend their history. The important part of this is that the different Greek city-states came together as one to fight together, which was uncommon. As you can see in the picture on the left, the soldiers all have the same shields representing the Persians. And on the right, they all have the different shields representing all the different logos of the Greek city-states who came together to fight. The Persian Wars started because in the 5th century, King Darius, the Persian king, was expanding west into conquered lands in Anatolia. The Athenians assisted an Ionian rebellion against Persia, causing the Persians to invade Greece. The Battle of Marathon was the first major battle in the Persian War. In this battle, the Greeks were heavily outnumbered, but they were able to use their phalanxes to get victory. After they won, the Persian fleet was not yet destroyed, only the Persian army. So, the Greeks sent Phidippus, a messenger, to run 26 miles from Marathon to Athens to notify them of their victory and to warn them that the Persian fleet was coming to Athens. The fable says that Phidippides died and his sacrifice saved the Athenian city. This is only a fable and it has not been confirmed by any historians. The Battle of Thermopylae was the next major battle of the Persian War. 10 years after Darius's defeat, his son Xerxes, who I mentioned previously, took over and made another attempt at Greece. His army walked in virtually unopposed until they made it to a mountain pass called Thermopylae. At Thermopylae, they were met by 7,000 Greeks along with 300 Spartans. In Thermopylae, the Greeks used their geography to their advantage by holding up in a narrow mountain pass. This was advantageous for them because phalanxes, while strong from the front, are very vulnerable from the sides. But in a narrow mountain pass, the Persian army wouldn't be able to attack them from the sides. This allowed the Greeks to hold off the Persians for 3 days, dealing massive casualties. It wasn't until a trader told the Persians of another way around the mountain pass that the Greeks started to lose momentum. Leonidas, who is the king of the Spartans, decided that he and the 300 other Spartans would sacrifice their lives holding off the Persians while the other 7,000 Greeks retreated. He and all 300 Spartans were killed. So some primary source accounts of Thermopylae was Herodotus wrote in his histories a detailed account of this battle. He wrote, "The Greeks were willing to fight to the last man, and at the sight of these men scrambling into armor astonished the Persians. They had expected no opposition. A Persian general was alarmed at the thought that he might be facing Spartans." So these quotes really show the immense pride that the Spartans had for themselves and for their country, that they were willing to sacrifice themselves for people that weren't even from their own city-state, but only from Greece. This shows the value of pride was heavily in Greek culture. So Greek naval warfare. Athens was known for their navy. They had the strongest navy in all of Greece. They used boats called triremes, which were 35-meter long, light and maneuverable ships that were relatively small for their time. And they used bronze battering rams to sink and ram into opponents' ships. The Battle of Salamis was another instance of when the Greeks used their geography to their advantage. The Persian fleet doubled that of the size of the Greeks, but the Greeks lured the Persians into narrower straits instead of fighting them in open oceans. In these narrower straits, the Greeks were able to use their smaller and more maneuverable ships to destroy the Persians' larger ships. The Persians lost 400 ships, while the Greeks only lost 40. This is important because the Persians lost the Peloponnese Peninsula. The Battle of Plateau marked the end of the Persian War. In 479 BCE, the 30 Greek city-states and 110,000 Hoplite soldiers defeated the Persians using phalanxes. This, combined with the loss at Salamis, crushed the Persians. The Greeks then unified to form the Delian League and drove the Persians out of Greece forever. The fighting continued for 30 more years, but it was on a much smaller scale, and the Greeks were on the offensive rather than the defensive. This was the first time in Greek history that so many city-states were unified together. This league was headed by the Athenians. Peloponnesian War. So the Peloponnesian War started when Athens and Sparta became enemies and went to war. Athens were the leader of the Delian League, and Sparta was the leader of the Peloponnesian League. There was a first minor Peloponnesian War, which ended in a peace treaty, which Athens was accused of breaking. Thucydides wrote, quote, the growth of the power of Athens and the alarm which this inspired in Lacedaemon made war inevitable. Lacedaemon is Sparta. So growing tensions and stubborn, prideful leaders led to war between these two immensely powerful city-states. So on this map, you can see the division of ancient Greece. The green represents Sparta, which was the Peloponnesian League, and the red represents Athens and the Delian League. So the Peloponnesian War started when the Spartan leader immediately went on the offensive and attacked Athenian allies on land. Pericles, which was the Athenian leader, refused to engage in warfare on land and focused on using his navy because he knew that Athens had the stronger navy while Sparta had the stronger military. But then a plague devastated Athens, killing 1/3 of its population, forcing Athens to sign the Peace of Nicias. As you can see in this picture, this is evidence of the Peace of Nicias Treaty. The Sicilian Campaign happened when Athens violated the peace treaty and launched an attack on Syracuse, one of the strongest allies of Sparta. At first, the Athenians had the upper hand because they took their enemy by surprise, but the campaign ended up being catastrophic for the Athenians and they were defeated. Many Athenians were taken prisoner or merely killed. Thucydides wrote that, quote, Athens was overwhelmed by their calamity and they were utterly in all points defeated. They determined so far as the situation allowed not to give way to the Spartans. Athens was in a period of turmoil and distress, and it was turning into it was becoming an oligarchy from its democracy. Athenians were able to reconstruct their navy, and they had future success in battles. But finally, in 405 BCE, the Spartans were victorious, and after getting aid from the Persians. The Athenians surrendered after being starved because of a blockade, bringing an end to the golden age of Athenian culture. So why is this important? The study of history is important for the future. The only way we can know what to do in certain situations is to learn from the past. The study of ancient Greece teaches us values for the future, such as first, pride. We saw several times the immense pride the Greeks had for their country was the fuel they needed for victory. But also, it's important to have confidence but not arrogance. We saw that the Athenians broke the peace treaty of Nicias, which resulted directly into their demise. It's important to be confident but not overly arrogant like the Athenians were. And it's important to avoid violence. If Greek history shows us one thing, it's the true death that war brings. It is always important to avoid war and to try to start with more or with other methods of peace. One should always try to make peace before resulting in violence. About the author. So my name is Benjamin Weiss, but most people call me Jamin instead of Ben. I'm from Washington, D.C., and I love sports. I run track and cross country, and my favorite subjects in school are math and science. Thanks for watching.